Very pleased to be joined by Carter Digital to talk about a digital experience that you have done for a very important institution here in Melbourne. So Nadine Berenjay and James Noble, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So what have you done? Start me off.
The Walter and Eliza Hall approached us it was their 100th year of discovery, so they've been around for 100 years, and they're basically wanting to hero their own staff and their scientists that have managed to make this all possible. So they asked us to, knowing that the public aren't necessarily aware of them, they've done an awful lot of good for humanity, and they wanted to come up, they realised that mobile was the way to go, because it's such a growing sort of touch point for people. So they approached us to see if we could fit their 100 years into a application-style website.
Okay, so tell me a bit more about that. They approached you, and then what did you have to do? You literally went through all the great discoveries, all the great achievements, and said, how can we condense this? There's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Right. Nadine?
So I suppose to take a step backwards, they're famous in the scientific community, but like James was saying, that the general public just don't know who they are, and so it's like, they started like a cure for influenza in the mid-30s, and that we're still using it today. They were at the forefront of cancer research, etc., etc. So how do we communicate that to the general public? And so it's just taking that content, and the Walter and Eliza, led by Lee, had the challenging task of adding all this content and restricting it down to 250 discoveries that a user can really get lost in and just really discover what they've actually achieved over the 100 years.
So it's one way to sort of tell us about how fantastic they are, the amazing achievements that they've done, but also is a part marketing exercise too. Tell me a bit about the sort of the balance between those two ideas.
I suppose if it's anything online, it's marketing, right? So it is in that sense, but in another sense, it's more about making people a bit more aware about how far Australia's come and how they are the leaders. We are, I'm finally saying we, I'm always claim I'm English, I've been here so long now, I might as well not be. Australia is one of the leaders and the innovators in the scientific community, and so they wanted to showcase this and hero Australia, not just themselves, that this is where we are, like you're saying, with some of the achievements. And in the last 2 decades, that it's been coming on leaps and bounds. And so they just wanted to sort of hero not themselves, but the people that behind
have worked there and to show what we've achieved in Australia,
and a bit of history. You look through some of these photographs. I mean, there's some great shots of people that obviously weren't used to cameras because there's a lot of eyes closed. But the photos from the 20s and right at the very start, where there's scientists in their big gowns, and you can see the advancements, and then you see the same people in those photos for the next 40 years. That's how committed they are. So they wanted to.
You wanted to celebrate that. So let's get to the digital experience itself. So you're working with the client, obviously heralding the great achievements that they've done. How do you not make this just a museum application, I suppose, with like a photograph and a little sign and a bit of information underneath? What did you do? How did you do this?
So I suppose it's really working with the client, so Lee and the team, to work out who their audience is. So they've obviously got a primary audience, who was the general public, and so it's like whatever we touch in the digital space needs to really talk to the general public. So the way that they did such a fantastic job with the content about writing to that person, rather, because it would have been easy to talk in science language, but I could go on there and actually understand what was achieved over all of this. And what's fantastic, we set out to the main objective of the site was for users to really get lost, and the engagement sitting at 3 minutes. It's people are just going and clicking
3 minutes.
3 minutes on average, users on that site, so which is a fantastic task.
I'm just thinking because of the way that they use the language in there, and because it keeps capturing, we want to make sure that people are not just looking at the photography. It is a hero because we want it to be, because there was so much over the 100 years of it, but also making sure that it followed through, so the user experience continued through to another section and led you through to different areas of the site, not just because you're interested in a specific thing, but it start to show you other things. And every time you come back, we've always at the same starting point, because I don't know about you guys, when you're looking for something, you go back and it's not there, and it's because there's a carousel so we want to make sure that people could always find it, but then they could find different ways to explore. So that's how we kind of came across it.
You always know where you started, but you can go off in funny directions, like a radial pattern of some kind.
And whenever you want to, you can just go back to where you can skip everything back to where you began, or you can start finding off different pathways. And It was difficult in a AA environment, which is the standard that we had to adhere to, so that it's most accessible to everyone, and trying to make that exciting and interesting. If you think of a government website...
So to go back to that AA environment, that means it has to be absolutely accessible. There's probably a better way for that acronym to come out. So what is it?
So that was the challenging point, was to make sure that it was accessible across multiple devices, that it was engaging, that we had easy access to information. And some of the simplest of things with design is that you may have one article that's got 10 words in it and one article's got 1,000. So how do you make it fit within the same experience? And that was a bit of a challenge. And also the challenge was I'm starting to think about the project now and realise how many different iterations we came through to try and get to where we were. And there was a lot, because it was so simple but so complicated at the same time, because everything related to something but then nothing at the same time, which made it really difficult to try and create a navigational structure that would work. So I think we achieved it, and it's just a case of now, so the proof is in the pudding, and I'm talking more about the project, and I'd rather talk about Walter and Eliza, because I kind of feel humbled by being able to do this work for them. They're the guys that should be heroed rather than us for some of the achievements that are on that site.
Out of interest, I mean, obviously this is a site, a digital experience that tells us about their great work, which is one thing, and then it's out there. How does that therefore feed back into how they are now perceived in I suppose here in Australia, here in Victoria in particular, because of what they've actually done? They've taken a big step by selling themselves in a great way. So how does that feed back into how they run their business from your perspective?
Well, I think it's, they're trying to attract that right talent. So it's like if they position themselves as the leading scientific research institute in Australia, it's like scientists that want to make a difference will be attracted to the institute, and therefore in the next decade or two, imagine, like James was saying, over the last 2 decades, how far they've come. Imagine what could happen in the next 2 decades.
It shows that they're open to new ideas and new possibilities, even if it's as simple as a wonderful digital experience for users, so people like us know that they've invented penicillin and things like that. So yeah,
and it's just down the road. Like we could walk there. That's the amazing part. Yeah, I think the world is changing in terms of access to information, and they're very willing and open to share all of their information online so that everyone can see it. There's no closed doors, and I think they're not just innovators, and I don't want to say thought leaders, but they're I hate that term. They're opening their doors and they're showing all this information, how they're changing and how the world around us is changing by giving access to this very quickly and easily from every device. So
yeah. It's kind of key, isn't it, by doing this, by being open access, open source, that actually you are leading us into the future. If you don't do it, you're sort of leaving yourself behind, essentially.
Yeah.
That's right. Let's go. So just down the road?
Yeah, it's like 10 minutes walk. Let's do it.
Let's check it out. James and Nadine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.